Good evening. I'd like to call to order the meeting of Community Unit School District 300 Board of Education, Tuesday, September 27th, 2016. I'm sorry, I meant reconvene the meeting of Community Unit School District 300 Board of Education, same date, September 27th, 2016. Mr. Alessio, please call the roll.
Alessio, present. Burley. Present. Fiorentino.
Present.
Garcia. Lopez.
Present.
Miller.
Present.
Stevens.
Okay. And Mr. Hyde, would you like to introduce our pledge leaders?
Yes, ma'am. Madam President, board members, members of the community, staff, and others, thank you for joining us this evening. It is my pleasure to start each meeting. And tonight we have Dr. Martina Smith from Meadowdale Elementary School, and she is here this evening with her students to lead us in the pledge.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for this honor. I have some great students here from Giovanni, Jared, Joshua, Jesus, Josephine, Ladeef, Alexis, and Lucy.
Before you go on, Madam President, if I missed this, but usually you provide parents with some additional instruction.
No. So here's what the rules are. Parents, feel free to roam around this room as you would like to take pictures. You can come anywhere you want to take pictures. Just picture. Please smile.
Please stand for the pledge.
Dr. Smith? Yeah, she's coming. They come share with everyone why they were selected to be here tonight?
And parents, you can also come up if you want to get pictures.
So when we selected our students to help with the pledge, looked for students who exhibit respectful, responsible, and safe behavior every day. And this was a great selection from first grade through fifth presentation.
Thanks for being here tonight. Thank you. Thanks for meeting us.
Excuse me, Miss Principal. Can you tell us that again? Because we weren't really paying. We were paying attention to them.
No problem. Selection, as far as the students that would join us here today, we looked for students who are respectful, responsible, and safe behaviors every day at Meadowdale, and they are primary examples all across our school.
Well, thank you, students, for coming. So, and we do what we do. They need to come to the first few minutes of a board meeting and see why. Okay, moving on. I had no changes on the agenda and no items requested to come off of consent. We will not be needing item number 16. Anyone else? In that case, a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Lopez. Miller. Burley. Motion passes 5-0.
Have a public hearing on our budget for the 2016-17 budget. We're opening the public hearing for the 2016 budget. Ms. Arkin will provide a brief overview on the 2016 budget. Ms. Arkin, it's all yours.
So tonight is the last and hopefully final presentation on the FY17 budget. And as you can see on the calendar that was at our board meetings, we've really deliberated on the current budget that's in front of you tonight. So tonight we're here to hold the budget hearing and ask for a final vote, and then we will file the budget with the appropriate parties after that point in time. For tonight's purposes, the presentation contains many slides of what we've reviewed in the past. I'm not going to go over those. They're there for the purpose of anybody else that may want to review it, because certainly a $250 million budget isn't something that's supposed to be contemplated and voted on without a lot of thoughtful process going into it. But I won't be going over it. I've shared this with you several times. So this slide just shows what program enhancements are in this year's budget. We reviewed this last board meeting, and there's certainly a lot of great things that are going on in District 300 and certainly that are part of this year's budget. I did add that we're not in the past because I just thought it's important to highlight where our dollars come from. And there's two slides up there. One is just from a very large perspective. What do we get in local, state, and federal dollars? The blue portion represents our local dollars, of which we receive 71.6% from our local dollars throughout the community. We receive 21.9% from the state, 0.4% from our federal government. And if we break it down a little bit further, from our state perspective, we receive about 15% of our overall funding from general state aid and 6.9% from other state revenue. When we look at that 71.6% of what we receive from local dollars, 66.4% comes from local property taxes, 2.4% comes from the dollars from the EDA, 9% comes from other local revenue, which represents interest and other student fees and other smaller revenue bases. The next slide that's new to the presentation is how are we spending those dollars. So from an overall fund perspective, which is the chart that's on the left-hand side, which we would hope 73.2% of our budget is spending on education, our teachers and everyone that has a direct touch point with what's happening in the classroom. Our next portion is 10.5%, which is spent on our debt service, which relates to the previous referendums and improvements and additions to buildings. 7.4% is spent on maintaining those buildings, and then the next largest category is 4.6% of our budget is spent on transportation, and then there's other smaller funds that we do spend dollars on. The next slide that's on the right-hand side says by the type of expenditure on our overall budget, where are those dollars going to? We have 49% that's spent, or almost 50% that's spent on salaries. If we add in benefits, and insurance, that's 62.8%. I believe I've shared this with you in the past. In most school districts, it would probably be closer to 75%, but because we outsource our transportation and our food services, which are represented in the purple bar that's up there of purchase services, that's really kind of the other component, which really is heavily laden in staff and people and benefits. The next biggest portion of our budget is spent on other objects. That represents our debt service payments as well as our tuition payments to the charter school and for our outplaced students. We aren't spending a lot on capital outlay, and we aren't spending a lot on supplies, and those are certainly things that we do want to keep an eye on, because if we want to maintain our 29 different buildings that we have out there, we need to make sure that we continue to properly maintain those buildings. So that's something I think we'll want to keep an eye on in the future. Again, now these are the slides that we've been reviewing at every meeting. We've provided our budget financial projections in a couple of different ways. One way is if we do get into a situation that passes the pension costs down to us, as well as a potential property tax free. The first set of slides represent what that might look like for the district in the future. These are the numbers that go, graph that represents. what would happen when we would look at where our fund balance would fall in alignment with our fund balance policy. And as we've reiterated in the previous presentations, certainly we do not need to overreact to that, but it's certainly something would impact us in the future, and we would have to address if that were to occur here at the district. But again, we've got in FY20 where we actually would start to have to jeopardize where our current fund balance policy is and maybe have to look at some choices long-term in relationship to that. The next set of slides represents without pension shift, without tax freeze, because those are certainly things that have not been legislated that would happen to the district. In that situation, we've indicated we would potentially, with the current projections and the current assumptions that we've got built into actions, we would start to deficit spend in FY19. But if we lost the slide there. If we look at that, we wouldn't drop below our fund balance policy, which is the bottom line of there. And we try to strive for a 25% fund balance policy. So I feel very good about where the district is. We showed this slide in the past. We've got an uphill on general state aid, but with the works, our general state aid will start to drop, and that's what's contributing to the fact that we will be deficit spending in the future. I'll open the slides out of order. But with where our current projections are and with no state legislation on pension shift or property tax freeze, we're going to maintain our healthy fund balance in our healthy fund balance policy. These are just the details that represent. The detailed budget is online as part of the board package. It will be posted on the website with all the various detail for the various line items that build up to the overall district budget. These are the operating funds, the debt service fund, and the capital projects fund. The next slide breaks out by the various operating funds: education fund, operations and maintenance fund, transportation, IMRF, Social Security, and working cash, and the various expenditures that are spent on each one of those categories. Again, we showed where we line up against other, the state of to our operating expense per pupil, which is well below the state average, how we stack up against local Kane County unit school districts, where the red bar up there, we spend the lowest in the county per pupil. And overall, the next one just shows our tax rate. And again, this has all been discussed before. You're familiar with these slides. This isn't anything new that I've shared with you tonight, but I think it's just important for us to reiterate the fact of, we're doing a really good job managing the dollars that we've been entrusted to and providing an educational system through that process.
Ms. Harkin, go back one slide if you don't mind. Sure. Just for the sake of public record, because I've received a couple emails about this. I know there was a board member asked a question. We continue to reflect teen finances in our slides. Could you please briefly provide an explanation?
Absolutely. These are all based off of audited financial statement. In order for the state who reports these numbers, people right now, we're just finishing up our audit right now as well too. We won't have our final audited figures for at least another month. So what happens, it unfortunately goes back for a long period of time because they're actually audited. So we'll have the 15-16. Usually it comes out in January, but it's 14-15 because we are just all in the process of closing out our 15-16. And again, this way, you don't want to build it off of a budget because those aren't actual numbers. These are actual audited numbers. In the EAV, on my last presentation, it was 2014. I had not changed that slide. These actually are 2015, and if you know how the tax process goes, I will be verifying 2016. It's funny because I was just telling Mr. McGinn that Board Finance Committee meeting, we will be adopting the calendar in October, tax levy, and that will be tax levy. And again, these are, I pull all of my information from sources are verifiable and accurate. So this is on actual tax rates as well, too. That answer your question, Mr. Hyde?
Thank you, ma'am.
All right. So at this point, for my part of the presentation is our next steps will be to ask you later on if you will approve this budget.
Okay, we will be voting on the budget later in the meeting under roll call items. Is there anyone who wishes to speak regarding the 2016-2017 budget? Okay. No public comments. Are there any comments from board members? We can also have before we vote as well. All right. We are now closed the hearing. Thank you. I have nothing under board announcements. I don't know any other board members, any announcements? Okay. Mr. Hyde, student and staff recognition. We're
Yes.
on item 8.
Madam President, members of the board, members of, my pleasure this evening. This is the second month that we have had an educator spotlight series. And this evening, I have the privilege of introducing Ms. Stephanie Dean as the next teacher in District 300's Educator Spotlight Series. As you recall, the goal of the educators is to seek out innovative educators who go above and beyond the call of duty to educate our students, to empower them with the tools they need to be successful in the classroom and to further flourish in the world. Stephanie Dean is a second grade teacher at Lake in the Hills Elementary School. Stephanie's contributions and character make her an indispensable asset to our school. In District 300, we continue student as college or career ready upon graduation, and the work that Stephanie accomplishes inside her classroom on a daily basis serves to further that mission. On behalf of District 300, I'm proud to present the next video in our Educator Spotlight series, Ms. Stephanie Dean. And before it begins, I'd like to ask Ms. Dean to join us at the podium, so you'll be able to a few words. And if you have any, if you have guests, you're welcome to.
My name is Stephanie Dean, and I teach second grade at Lake in the Hills Elementary School. I've been at Lake in the Hills for my entire 10 years. I taught there for 7 years, took 8 years off to raise my family. Student engagement is, since they're not engaged in their learning, then they are not able to learn. If you at their desks all day long, we start with a warm-up activity where I engage them through music and through activity and through movements. And I have very specific exercises that we do as well. The exercises are purposeful. Know that as they are exercising, they are getting oxygen to their brains, which allows them to increase their learning. The movements are purposeful because as we are moving, we are crossing the midline. And as we cross the midline, both hemispheres of our brains, thus being able to maximize learning. Every year since my first year of teaching, I have had so this year is my 10th theme. This year we have a beach theme. When you walk in, you will see a great big umbrella on deck chairs. You'll see beach balls hanging from the ceiling. It creates excitement towards learning. As we know the atmosphere and the nurturing environment, and knowing that they have a safe key to their success. A student-led classroom, especially when we're talking about math, increases student engagement because I am no longer the teacher up front. Students are the ones who are active participants in their learning. The ones teaching each other. As an adult, I sometimes am not able to communicate to each student in the way that other children are able to communicate to each other as a result of the person who is teaching, but also the person who is being taught. Music engages students in so many different ways. For example, there is something called a subtraction rap that my students love to do, and they love to show anyone and everyone who will listen. It is okay the words and the process and how they are going to subtract, but there are movements that go with it as well. We know that whenever we can get as many modalities involved in learning, that learning. The best thing about being a teacher is being able to have that impact not only as a whole, but individually as well. And that impact does not only affect the child, but it reaches into his or her family way for them to be prepared for. For this honor, I want to thank the board, this community. For me, it was very, very fun to see my graduates from last year. This is now my 11th year, and I would love to invite the board to come and see my new theme, which is an equestrian theme this year. Of sometimes the crazy ideas I have, and when I need to verbally process. Also, my husband, almost 20 years, so for his constant support and putting up with my theme every year and not being able to shut off my brain at night. And also to Janine Haugen, who is my teammate and partner and friend. We work very closely together. She is a special ed teacher in our building. But it's a privilege to not only work and serve of not only Lake in the Hills, but of District 300, but it is an honor to be president of Lake in the Hills. I have a 6th grader at Westfield and a 4th grader at Lincoln Prairie, and so I am not only a parent, I'm a teacher and a resident. I'm proud of District 300, even though I did not grow up here. I of the area after attending Judson University. I truly call 300 my home. Thank you.
Sorry if I'm not on the agenda, but I will not pass up an opportunity about Mrs. Dean and the great things that are happening at Lake in the Hills Elementary. So if you wouldn't, from Cara a few ago, and I have been putting it into practice. Whenever a principal is having a rough day, you know, just bogged down by whatever that might be, I put this into practice, like I said, is just shut down your computer, turn off into a classroom, and just absorb what is going on all here. And so Mrs. Dean is any of the other classrooms out, and I'm like, I'm heading down to Mrs. Dean's room today. I just need to sit in an Adirondack chair and watch learning happen. So yeah, it is just a powerful reminder of what we are about, what this district is striving for, and it motivates and inspires and gets us back on track. So this is not just a play on words, but I want to truly invite you guys to come. Welcome anytime. When I'm sure that happens too. So we are proud of her and what not only what she does for her students' learning, but the impact she also has as a leader, and the things that are happening in her room are then with colleagues and up and down the hallways at Lake in the Hills. So thank you guys very much for spotlighting our school and Mrs. Dean. I can't wait to share this video with our community and our parents.
Mrs. Dean?
Miss Dean, you need to come up front and shake hands. Let me rephrase that. You should come up front and shake hands. You don't have to.
So how many times has the principal been in your classroom this year already?
I do have a very good picture, actually. The quantum key
But it makes you realize why we do this, why you do that. Thank you.
Madam President, members of the board, moving on into the attendance report. We're going to begin this evening with an update that the board has heard a few updates about previously. And this is a direction of the board. This is a program that we are infusing new energy and a new initiative. And so this evening we are joined by Shelley Nacketh, the Assistant Superintendent of Ed Services, and Frederickson, our Director of Social and Emotional Learning. And they are here tonight to talk about the relaunch of Peer Jury.
Thank you. I'm very excited tonight to be able to talk about this. So before we actually can talk, I also need to talk about our Discipline Review Committee, because that was also revitalized and restructured this year as well. So with our Discipline Review Committee, it used to be really for only second or a possible recommendation to our Safe Schools program or possible behavior. Those cases would go to our Discipline Review Committee. In looking at that, we decided that's really only focusing on the secondary level. So how do we schools as well? We expanded Discipline Review Committee to also become a problem-solving team as well. So we have everywhere from preschool all the way up to high school, so that any level school who is struggling a little bit with a student's social emotional concerns or behavior issues can come and talk in a safe environment and problem solve with a lot of different administrators. In addition to that problem solving, we also look with peer jury, is peer jury come before peer jury versus just leaving that decision to the school. The case actually comes to discipline review to review the whole facts of the story and making sure that we have all the information that we need so that it is appropriate and for that student who is going in front of the peer jurors to hear, as well as the peer jurors, it's appropriate for them to hear that as well. So in revitalizing our peer jury, totally forgot that there's a slide to this. So in revitalizing that, so that kind of have to start when we talk about peer jury. Peer jury, for that appropriateness of peer jury, because there's a lot of things that could possibly be brought to discipline review responsibility of peer jury. These are just a few of the items. One of the things that goes with the revitalization of peer jury is really looking at those attendance. So a school can bring a student 1st grade through 12th grade that's really kind of and go in front of their peers. With the changes with the law regarding student discipline, it also allows us a different opportunity for students to be able to have those so we don't have to suspend school. So some things like a minor drug offense or alcohol offense, in addition to our Rosecrans procedure, they can also come in front of the peer jurors as they can options and other supports within the school support that. Minor discipline, minor theft, trespassing, those repeated offenses. These are just a few of them, but really the list of what could possibly be brought to peer juries. Ms. Frederickson is going to talk about how our training went and how amazing the insight that they had during. So I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Frederickson so she can actually talk about the whole peer jury process.
Thank you, Shelley. Good evening. How do we change it? We're so excited this evening to bring a program to you that you have. We got a lot of district support. Our peer jury program is in place. Our mission for this program is to provide an additional form of intervention for our students. Form of intervention because we will be able to address student discipline, support that process. Also, it's a tool, or we're going to use it to enhance the placement of our students and the support of our students. To our program, going through DRC, our discipline referral committee, will be a restorative approach. About our process. In thinking in terms of a restorative approach to peer jury, we want to really give our students an opportunity to reflect upon their behaviors, for them to account for them, but we want to commit for them to do so. Also, it is about repairing cost, whether it's to a victim or to our community. The other component, because it's a restorative approach, it's going to provide a means and a remedial way of just dealing with behaviors that we see with our students. So often, students have had an infraction and really have had no way to, so this will provide a meaningful way in which they can reflect upon that. Also, with our peer jurors, our goal was to help them understand the offender. Also for them to assign a consequence that really does fit the infraction that has happened. Also to help them. Our peer jury is not about just consequencing, and that's where that restorative piece comes in. It is about helping them become accountable, because if we don't allow our students to be accountable for the things that have happened, then they're not growing from it. In addition, just to understand behavior has caused harms, because we don't have bad students. We really don't. We have good students who have made a poor choice, and we want to allow them to get back into community, to be well educated, and to be a part of our system, which we feel so strongly about. Possible consequences. Apology, community service, school community service, that's one of my favorites. I really believe for it to be most effective, a student really needs to be in the environment and embrace their behavior and the situation, and then physically healing that. Also, contracting with schools, there is opportunities for home community service, because we also want to embrace our families. They also need to be a part of this process. In some cases, offer tutoring for them to engage with younger students so that they know their behavior not only is a reflection of them, but it can also have an effect. Consequences, peer mediation, reports, presentations. Of course, we're going to expect that they are in attendance. Another consequence, joining of that as a consequence, but our goal is not to just be towards our students, but to be able to embrace them and support them. It's opened, as you guys are all aware of, our food pantry. We are hoping that that will create an opportunity for our community and work in the food pantry if that's an opportunity that's allowed. Training, oh my goodness, incredible. The number of students that came out, we were just so impressed. We were looking for about 10, 15 students. The applications kept coming, and they kept coming. And I was like, Shelley, so what's a comfortable number? You know? And Shelley knows I'm the wuss. I couldn't say no to anybody. The essays were so compelling. In the essays, because that was a said, I was bullied, and I want a chance to help kids not bully. I participate in a lot of fun things in my school, but I see other students who don't. How do we get them in? We were so impressed. The did our training about 2 weeks ago. So it was at Westfield. Shelley and I were there. We also had an assistant state's attorney join us. We will have sessions held monthly here at the district office for those cases that come through DRC. Also, the case in which we need to expedite it, we have the ability to do that because our goal is to meet our students' needs. Focus of our training, just appropriately dialoguing with the offender and following through on a restorative consequence. Our students were very insightful. Shelley led the training, and oh my goodness, the questions that they ask, the level of commitment. At one point, we asked how should they dress, and they were ready to put on tuxedos, suits, ties, and we were like, okay, well, we don't have to go that far, but that let us know they're taking the process seriously. So we were very pleased with that. And the big piece, restore the student offender back into the learning environment. This isn't to isolate students. It's not to put them on point. It's not to separate them, but it's to allow them to heal the harm that they've caused, be accountable for that, and then get back into the school community and be a productive part of that. Training. In order for them to participate in the process as a juror, training and their role, and they really were insightful with that. The components of the handbook, they all wanted to take their handbook home. We were like, no, we're going to keep them here. Can I have copies of this? And this is our training group. So embracing a restorative decision-making process. Again, they're not there to lay down a hammer and say, okay, you have been punished. It is that you're not successful and you made a poor choice. Now, how do we bring you back? And they were very animate about the confidentiality. They wanted to make that they could work on cases with students in their school and then be able to also be a part of it and without judgment on their part or on the student. This is our 2016 peer jurors. We have a great group. Thank you all for all of your support.
So just a brief, just kind of a summary, because I like bringing these things back around full circle. 14-15, we began a process of revisiting and revised, very timely, because I think that made us more consistent and aligned with new statutory. We really focused on progressive discipline and discipline that made sense. The consequences and outcomes were also linked to other interventions, such as counseling and additional supports. The board will remember that in 15-16 we took the next step. Cheryl Fredrickson took the lead again and began expanding our restorative practice and our restorative justice policies and practices, training multiple schools. We now have it in full effect with restorative circles, and only there being a consequence, because there must be a consequence, but also an opportunity for the student to receive some counseling and dialogue about what they did and how they can make it right. Conflict, we've brought students and staff together who have been in conflict to resolve their differences. This was the next evolution of this process. In 15 of attending peer jury in McHenry County Courthouse on the invitation of Ms. Miller, Board President Ann Miller, and so as a result, peer jury. So really, again, it's a comprehensive program that we've developed that started with redefining our student code of conduct. We've trained staff and students now on how to appropriately manage dialogue, especially conflict. Again, for restorative practices, restorative purposes, don't have significant consequences for certain. Also, peer jurors can still assign additional consequences, and sometimes, as often is stated, students can sometimes be much more harsh in their criticism, in their feedback, and at their level. And quite interesting, peers respond very differently to that as well, in a much more positive way. So kudos to the two of you for taking this vision and making it a reality.
I have to make some comments here. I think this is phenomenal. we go back to when we first started this, and I think we have to find that the jurors, it is a good learning experience for them as well. They tend to have to get out of their comfort zone. They're exposed to different circumstances. It's hard to understand steal cookies at lunchtime when they've never been hungry. And it's with the jurors having to come together in an agreement, they have to learn negotiating skills and understanding skills themselves. And that's really important with the student offender coming. And as the process evolves, it almost becomes natural, always about what happened, what did you do, and then they try and learn a little bit about the student, and then the consequences kind of blend those together into consideration the parents. And I can remember times when they were deliberating, saying, we're not giving them home community service because their parents going to lie for them. We're going to give them something else. Or they're going to say, a lot of different things that come into play. The student jurors are able to ask questions that either administrators don't think of or can't. And they tend to be able to tell kids, pull up your pants. And they're sitting there like, okay. It's really a great program. And instead of taking away a student's education by saying you did this, so now you're going to be out for 3 days. Oh, yeah, you can make up your work. Okay, that doesn't always work out well. This started 20 years ago. You get on the board. One of the hardest things that I think student expulsions. And when you have parents in front of you saying, he needs to stay in school. Can't she have some other consequence? It was a bad error on her part, and we're sitting there tied and had lots of expulsions. To be able to say, okay, you need to know that you understood what the consequences were here, but then to be able to say, okay, maybe there is a different way to do this. There's a way to keep this and have consequences. And I'm telling you, some of the consequences that these students, they'd much rather have an out-of-school suspension because it's done. They weren't going to do their work anyway, and to have to come back, them in McHenry County, we get them for 30 days. Here we have them, and we can keep them in our system and have them move along. I can't tell you how pleased I am. This is just that it's come to here, which is even better than what we had before, and we had it pretty good until it kind of floundered and back, and having the support from administration like this is great, because instead of having to fight to get it, we have support to get it. So that's my spiel. I'm just.
Thank you. Yes.
Maybe you can hear me. When you said they got copies of the handbook, that's the D300 handbook, or do you have a peer jury handbook?
Go ahead, Sean.
We have a handbook for peer jurors. Yeah. So it goes through and it talks about.
Created by District 300, or did you assimilate it from somewhere else?
We had in the past, which I think was the combination of McHenry County peer jury as well as the district. And then we also got King County as well. And we took pieces from all of them and combined it into one of the jurors. It walks them through the process, through the questioning process, example questions for the parents as well as for the student, as well as, some of them have. So they always go back to.
And then my next question was, did I misunderstand school through high school? Because it used to be secondary.
For discipline review, remember, from preschool all the way through high school. Peer jury actually starts at 6th grade through high school. Mhm.
Thank you. Good job.
Okay, so if you have, on the committee, you have preschool through high school, but it's, what is the reasoning behind having the younger, grades represented?
For discipline review, because there's really three purposes of review. It used to just be the only purpose of discipline review was to review a case and make, that was the purpose of discipline review. So looking at expanding that to being able to look at the peer jury process, making sure it's vetted through appropriately, as well as for elementary and preschool to be able to have a place to come and talk. We have a student who, he won't sit in his seat and he's doing the Superman chair 5 times a day. We've tried this, and this, are there any other ideas that you can have? Because sometimes if you're looking at that and you're living, it's hard to look from the outside where you can have people from the other side say, from another school say, oh, we had one of those too, and here we tried this and this work. At problem solving, it's a place to be able to come before it gets to that situation where you're at an out of school or even an in-school suspension. So it gives them to just talk and problem solve and really focus on how do we get that to be able to learn and meet those social emotional needs.
Had a difficult, you go from the to your principal and the principal to the committee? Is
Yes.
that how it works?
Yep.
Okay.
And we actually have present, and they actually upload it into the Google Doc so that everyone can see that student. What interventions have you already tried? What have you already done? And that. So it's being able, and the paperwork, present this case for problem solving. Do you want to present it for peer jury, or do you want to present it for possible schools or expulsion? And then they go through and fill out that paperwork, and it's a conversation with that team. And so far, we've had DRC almost every week, and it's been very, very successful. And actually, we've had more problems so far this year than any other type of cases that have come to discipline review.
Well, I can see how this will be a tremendous support for teachers and principals and those students, because they're getting farther and farther down the age.
Mm-hmm. And the exciting thing with that is that then they don't have to own it themselves. Now we have a resource that's a district resource. Students understand to make sure we're meeting the needs of all of our kids.
We're keeping Cheryl very busy with observations.
Any other comments, questions?
I can just tell Shelley's in her heyday. She loves discipline. She told me that.
Okay, Mr. Hyde.
Madam President, this topic tonight is our website update. So I will ask Mr. Anthony McGinn, our Director of Public Relations and Communication Services, to please join us at the podium.
Education. Good evening, Superintendent Hyde. Before we get started, I would really like to thank the board for allowing my department and I to redesign the website. This has been really excited to show you the progress. I do want to start the presentation by saying that we are not going to show you what the website looks like. We are going to give you kind of a vague idea where we're going with it, and I'll explain why. So when you start talking about the website redesign, the way for people to understand it is to make the analogy to building a house. It's very difficult to want to build a house because there's a lot of planning that goes into it before. When you start thinking about the process and the phases that are involved with building a house, they're strikingly similar to building a website. When you look at what goes into building a house, there's usually typically 4 phases. There's a research and information gathering. There might be a young family with kids who has to decide we need more space. We need to have X amount of bedrooms. We need a big backyard. Once you decide what you need, then you meet with an architect in phase 2. You meet with a planner. You come up with a blueprint. Once you have that blueprint, you turn it over to the architect, and then they begin building it, and then in phase 4, you move in. For our website redesign, we follow a similar phase. First, we have our research and gathering phase. We have phase 2, our design and planning phase. Phase 3 is our building phase, and Phase 4 is our launch phase. Tonight, we're going to talk about Phase 1 and Phase 2 just a little bit. So we'll get started with Phase 1, our research, information, and gathering. So we didn't want to just wake up one day and start building a website. We really wanted to make sure we did our due diligence in performing our research beforehand. So what exactly did that entail? First and foremost, we spoke with Superintendent Hyde. We wanted to know what his vision was for the district, and most of that came from the strategic plan. Whatever those initiatives, goals, and strategies were, we needed to ensure that our website would be able to be a platform that could provide our public, our board, and our staff members an opportunity to really gather that information in ways that were meaningful and impactful to them. We also talked to our staff members. What are some things that they needed out of our website? We've also had conversations with a targeted group of principals, more of our tech-savvy principals, and at some point later on, actually this week, we're going to open it up to all principals to see what it is specifically that they need out of the website. We also talked to our community members. Our community members gave me 442 suggestions of things that they wanted of the website. Every single one of those has been reviewed, and many of them will be incorporated into the website. So the communications department, we held a survey and we asked our community members about their needs in the new website, and one of the most noteworthy responses we received was we asked the question, are you more likely to access the website on a phone or a PC? What's very interesting is the result we got back. 49.2% of survey respondents reported they access our website or a school website on a smartphone. That's almost half. If we had started building this website 2 or 3 years ago, we may have built something completely different than we're building now. And that's why the research and the information gathering was so important. So what does that mean that we have to now consider that half of our district is accessing the information on their phone? Let's talk about what we actually need to build now. So my department is building one District 300 website. We're also building 26 school websites. We're also building a separate District 300 mobile site and 26 separate mobile school sites. So quite the endeavor, but by the time it's done, it's going to be a tremendous change and really impactful for our community. So how do we build all of this? Well, just like when you get to this phase in home planning, you'll have a couple or anyone who will meet with an architect and they'll provide them with blueprints. Those blueprints, you can talk about some of the refining components. You might want to change the way a window looks. You might want to change, and then eventually they'll build it and you'll have a really nice house. We would partner with the equivalent in Blackboard. A house, we provide them with a blueprint. Our blueprint kind of shows where we want certain things to go. And all of this information was based on the research and information gathering component. So what I'm going to show you now, we've populated these assets based on what the community has asked for. This will give you a very vague understanding of what the website will look like, but I want to stress that this is not the final version of the website. Okay? So this, again, is just kind of, these are just assets populated in an area. So if you look, we're going to have a much larger homepage slideshow. That's going to be rotating. It'll have the cases and videos. You'll be able to hyperlink to anything that you need to do. There's a light blue bar that has different icons on them. Those have asked for easier access to. They want transportation information immediately, the ability to track their bus. They want school meal information. They want calendar information, log on to one-to-one, the ability to find one-to-one device resources, log into Infinite Campus, find employment information, report school instances in the school safety tip line, and the communication center. The communication center is going to be a one-stop shop for all of our communication needs. Any RCS that goes out will be, if a parent thinks that they didn't receive it, they can log on to our website at any time and just monitor any press release. Anything is going to be populated in there, so if a parent ever has any concerns about what has been communicated, they can always go to that one place. Underneath that, we're going to, right now, if you were to go to our website and type in something basic like report card, there's not a very good opportunity that your search results will actually return any information about a report card. What we're doing is we're indexing everything that'll be on the site so it'll perform real-time search functionality, so be able to find that we're receiving now. I also want to point out that we're building this website in as well. Underneath this, there's also areas where the community wanted easier access to news. So we'll have more engaging photographs, headlines, we'll have copy about what the different upcoming dates. It'll be itemized by the actual day of the week. The really nice thing about it, who goes to Dundee Crown, CMS, and Parkview, you'll be a page and you'll be able to specifically select those 3 schools and only get the calendar to your specific needs. And the final part, we're going to have social media integration, so any building will be able to put their Facebook, Twitter. We're also going to have, if you notice, there's two places for communication campaigns. These are going to be for longer form communications, things that last for a number of years. Strategic plan website or strategic plan update, that'll be populated on the homepage. Anytime there's a Board of Education update, that can be also updated to our web page. At the very bottom of our website, we're going to have a D300 others, but is more important and more expansive than a one-off in the news section. So for example, if a parent has questions about an SAT, I want to get information about Riley Almore on the Voice, all of those things at the bottom of the website. So what are our next steps? In phase 1, we've completed the research and information gathering. We talked about that a little bit earlier. We're nearing completion of phase 2, which means right now we're finishing up those blueprints. Once those blueprints are completed, we'll send those over to Blackboard. Then we begin the fun stuff. Then we begin building the website. That'll be about an 8 to 12 week process. Once the website is built, then we'll move into the launch phase of spring in 2017. And that concludes the presentation.
Any questions, board members? Mrs. Bird?
Launch of next spring, that's earlier than you originally had talked.
Phases in it. So the launch is actually preparing staff for the new website. It's providing trainings to make sure everyone can update the website and know how to populate it with assets. So the actually going live with the website, we're trying to do, we're trying to launch it probably in late May internally. I'm accustomed to it, and then going live this summer for the public.
Perfect. Okay, thanks.
Include at the school level, so what they're doing to maintain their part of their own website?
For the launching component, yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
Great.
Thank you. Nice. I'm excited.
Good job, Ms. Again, you might as well stay close by. So as we transition to the third topic tonight, we are providing throughout the 15-16 year strategic plan update. Prior to the video, though, I want to take a few moments to kind of reframe the conversation. So a year ago, I approached the board with a request to revise our strategic plan. Previously, prior to my arrival, we had spent a great deal of time, money, in them and developing a strategic plan. It was very thoughtful. But as we had our conversations, a lot of time comes. So we transitioned using that and survey information from our stakeholders focused on 4 major goal areas for the board with regular updates. If you recall, quarterly updates as to how goal areas has requisite initiatives. And some actually are time sensitive, meaning they'll work a period of time because they're not overly complicated. Others may take because there are multiple phases to the process. What we hope to do this is not necessarily a relaunch, but to reinvigorate the process as well, because much like school improvement plans or other initiatives, and it can become something that we talk of, not necessarily always linked to our day-to-day work. We continue to use this work for our community, for all of our stakeholders, that focuses on what our major initiatives and elements of push and improvement are, but also with a high level of accountability. As we've shared before, all of them are measurable outcomes. Each of them are timeline specific. As needed, we provide budget information, and more importantly, they're linked to every and throughout the district, because all of us have a touch point with a strategic plan. that we keep this fresh. Even though the board and community might see initiatives that are real, and I'll use Ms. Nackey as a primary example, because we follow these speech pathologists, we end up contracting out in some fill our need. And so for Ms. Nackey, it's going to be that if we do not have enough speech pathologists to support our students' needs, she has to work with Mr. Mora and also with her initiated and completed in a timely manner so we can secure and qualified staff moving forward. So tonight you're going to hear kind of a summary of where we are and where we're headed for the 16-17 school year. And we, just for your purposes, we did have an off-site retreat where focus us on the right areas. You'll see reflected in many of the changes that you will and hear about throughout the rest of this school year. I'm not sure who's going first. Is it video first?
The District 300 Strategic Plan is an innovative framework that sets a clear pathway for how District 300 will continue to advance as a premier public education system through the year 2020. The strategic plan builds on existing strengths, addresses areas that must be improved, and maintains our focus to ensure we never lose sight of our district's central mission to ensure that all students are college and career ready upon graduation. In the fall of 2014, a strategic planning team tasked to establish a set of goals to position the district for success over the next 5 years. The team held a number of established the plan's 4 main goal areas: develop great teachers and leaders, engage the family and community, ensure the equitable and efficient use of resources, and develop the whole child. On Superintendent Fred Hyde presented the Board of Education with a 5-year strategic plan, and it was approved. Since then, the district has maintained an unwavering commitment to achieve our strategic plan. In developing great teachers and leaders, we established an administrator pipeline offering employees a professional development program with opportunities to prepare them for various roles within District 300. Recent participants include Nancy Riegel, Jake Stouffer, Nikki Berkey, Pam Brett Unruh, and Doug Corey. We've developed an educator spotlight series highlighting great things occurring inside District 300 classrooms. Our community has responded with strong viewership, and in some cases, the practices of our innovative teachers have grabbed the attention of our local newspapers. We've refined our Educator of the Year Support Person of the Year process, leading to multiple nominations and winners in Kane County Educator of the Year. The family and community, we publish quarterly strategic plan updates where we provide complete summaries and analysis of each goal area. We reimagined our aims as our latest report was named one of the best in the nation by the National School Public Relations Association. We've held multiple town hall meetings district-wide for all community members, ranging on topics from our strategic plan and promotion and retention policies. We implemented online registration district-wide, providing a more efficient manner for our parents to sign their children. To continue our equity sources, District 300 were one of the first school districts in the nation to offer parents the opportunity to track their students' bus using the Durham Bus Tracker app. We secured grant funding to provide every student tuition-free full-day kindergarten, and we successfully implemented the largest one-to-one rollout in the state of Illinois. To develop the whole child, District 300 implemented art programs in all of our elementary schools. We developed pathways to college and career programs with the Advanced Manufacturing Program at Hampshire High School, the Information Technology and Computer Science pathway at Jacobs High School, and the Business Incubator Program at Dundee Crown High School, where the student team First Step was named the national winner of the 2016 National Pitch Award. We have explored and implemented summer enrichment activities, including STEM camp for grade school students, for 14 action items in the District 300 strategic plan. There were well over 460 additional action items in the plan that we are continuing to develop. District 300 is incredibly proud that we are accomplishing all of the items in our innovative strategic plan while operating below the state average in per pupil expense. District 300 remains committed to ensure students receive a quality education and are college or career ready upon graduation. Provides a path. Stay up to date with the latest strategic plan information at d300.org/strategic plan.
Garrett.
He's a hard act to follow. Year, in goal 1, let me start by saying we do not have new in our plan under goal 1, but we have a large number of new action items. Thanks to the repurposing of some of our administrative staff, we now have content area leaders in math, science, ELA, and social studies. And so the capability that those individuals will have to move work forward at a faster speed, it has added a large variety under this strategy and under this goal. So some highlights include really focusing on developing our Haiku system, which is our web-based curriculum portal. Now that we do have content area directors, they are building that faster than we have been able to do so in the past. We last year established an instructional review process, and we're now continuing forward with that. This year, we've already started the initial steps in reviews for K, 4, 9, 12 ELA, and then for selected AP textbooks, point where we really do need to remain valid under their guidance system. We're also investigating new reporting tools for that will look at a more blended approach to providing them updates about their students' progress K-8. Under the strategy, high quality and diverse teachers, instructional leaders, and staff, we talked about all the work that the HR department has completed throughout this summer, in particular highlighting the over 300 additional, over 250 of those being certified teachers. We're also working very hard. We're going to utilize our subsystem to minimize the number of subs jobs that aren't unfilled. With a large number of we have and the opportunity that people have for professional development, we do need to be very coordinated Mondays and Fridays, where we often see a lot of those personal days. We're utilizing our district professional development calendar to really are analyzing when each of our professional development offerings are occurring and ensuring that we keep those submum. It's very difficult for building principals and for our students if subs, if we have teachers out and there are not subs available, we're working hard at. We're also looking at continuing with our, and that's something that we've updated you on throughout the last 3 years. At this point in the process, almost all of our staff have completed the first step, which is selecting the growth model that they would like to utilize and completing their first data review meetings. Those will be finished actually this Friday. In strategy 1.3, looking at our ongoing professional development opportunities for teachers, we are looking at a comprehensive development plan for all of our employees. We focused a lot on having a stronger plan for administrators, often those individuals who are left behind. This year, under the guidance of Director Lindsay Jonas, we were able to actually bring in our administrator academy, receive their administrative summer. That's a benefit so that they're absent during the school year in order to fulfill that requirement of their certification. We're also looking at the format in which we deliver professional development. So last spring, we kicked off our D300 University, and since the spring, we've had over 100 participants who've completed over 1,000 courses through the D300 University process. And we're looking at a variety of ways to offer that professional development. So some of it is, much of it's in a blended or web-based format, so teachers can access that as needed and work around their personal schedule. This also allows us to reduce that sub requirement, as we talked about before. And last but guys, we're looking at, with the addition of our new interventionists, both in the literacy and math area, our coaches and our facilitators, how do we provide professional development to those teacher leaders to ensure that they can our teachers in all of those different settings. So those are some of the key things new action items under our Goal 1 strategies.
For strategy 2.1, to establish a culture that is collaborative, transparent, we do have some new highlights. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to complete a district guide. Tonight, the board may have noticed that there's a new PowerPoint template for the board meetings, and that was intentional because it's going to be part of our document style guide. So all of our different mediums that we're going to have will have a consistent look and feel moving forward. We're also going to develop a calendar of events. We talked about a webpage redesign and webpage update theme for our pathway programs. We're also going to examine developing a breakfast with the board. Superintendent and Hyde and I had a preliminary conversation about that last week, and we'll provide up very near future. For strategy 2.2, creating a more welcoming and responsive environment that all stakeholders that leads to an open line of communication, we are going to develop and implement parent universities for our one. We're going to develop a district vision. I've been working with Jake Stauffer on that a little bit earlier, and I have to tell you, it's really refreshing to have someone like him in the office who is very passionate about marketing and branding his particular field. It's been great having him along, and honestly, is Jackie Dajinski. We're working on a project together, and it goes along with developing a family student activities to promote and celebrate math. A couple of, actually right when this, and he was helping a parent with their math homework, not with the parents' math homework, with the students' math homework. And he was, the parent had communicated to him, I'm struggling to help my student with their math. I know how to, my student has learned it differently. To the parent, how to do it. And afterwards, he said, Anthony, is there a way that we can help all of our parents do this? And I thought maybe we could. So I worked at that time with Dr. Churchill and now with Jackie Dajinski. And what we're working on now, we are coming up with a video for every unit in every grade, how to do specific math problems. I have to ask Superintendent Hyde for assistance anymore, unless they want to. And then we're also developing a process for partnering with our pre-K providers, our outside pre-K providers. I spoke with Kurt Rowling earlier today, actually, about increasing the visibility of our AVID program through marketing, laboratory events. We'll be working a little bit later this next month to really finalize that. We're going to investigate and implement strategies to increase our family involvement and engage. And we're going to streamline and enhance our district-wide arts processes and stakeholders. With that, I'll turn it over to Ms. Harkin.
I'm going to jump in for a second, Mr. McGinn. So when you look at that one, we talk about partnering with our outside pre-K providers. So as you know, we have been very fortunate between Ms. Breen and Ms. Harkin. We have received. The problem that we've run into now is space. And we can't, well, without buildings, have any available space, and that's a good problem to have. So we realized that a lot of our are still relying on private daycare. Some are organized, have a structured curriculum that focuses on social development and even early literacy and numeracy skills. But we know that there are those private providers who do not. And so the reason why we're going to provide an outreach program and partner with those is we're going to provide them free opportunities for professional development. I think that if we're going to be partners in a child's education and knowing that some parents are taking advantage of either private care through family relatives and others, we'd like to be able to provide them with access to resources and also to training so that they can make sure that the time spent with them is not just time spent. And I'm not being disingenuous to our private providers, but we want the time to be me time for the be play-based activities and those types of enriching opportunities, not just time sitting in front of a television. And far too often we know that that does happen. That's one of our outreach for the pre-K pre-K. I wanted to provide a little explanation there because I think that's important.
So with that example, will that be offered to faith-based pre-K, for-profit pre-K? I mean, really doesn't matter? Is that what we're...
Any private provider, yes, sir. So regardless of its parochial status or not, these are trainings that we already provide internally, and so we would just be filling seats. This is not something that's above and beyond. It doesn't cost us any more. It doesn't cost people in the audience than it does to have 5 people in the audience. So I think it's important that we continue to extend our opportunities to partner more efficiently. This is the Miss Harkin evening.
One of the things, I've been fortunate, this is my 3rd year going into this process, participated in a strategic planning process in the past. I think one of the themes, your goal 2, there was a touch point to another department, folks, to actual educational opportunities, and to me, one Hyde has really brought forth through this process is let's remove the silos. Let's make sure that every component of what we're doing in the strategic plan has some real touch point to one another. So I hope to highlight that in my section tonight. Specifically for the ensuring of the use of district funds being transparent, aligned. One of the things is, we want to make sure that things end up in the right buckets, and one of we're going through the process this year is, we want to make sure that we're complying with local state regulations. Really didn't align to anything else specifically. So we did create a new initiative because certainly we want to comply with fact if we don't. For our first strategy 3.1 to ensure that the district funds are transparent, strategic, and aligned, we want to continue improving our financial transparency. Specifically, the first is to really get a detailed handle on our budget, focuses in on programs aligned to student needs. So while I'm looking at the district finances, I want to make sure that we understand how those dollars are best being supported to our students. Programmatic review technique, I think we've gotten away from that, but I think we can really pull data and really get to how it's best serving needs. I think we already kind of are doing it in the background, but again, we want to make sure that people understand how we're taking the dollars we're using and students. We continue to focus on our purchasing requirements. This year we're going to be bringing forth to the CFOC what are our bidding requirements bonds and just reaffirm that piece. We want to make sure that when we go out to bid that those dollars are being used in the most effective and efficient ways, but also that things are done in an appropriate manner. And then while we talk about stakeholders in this section, stakeholders also represent our buildings. So we're really going to focus this year, how do we continue improving communication with our buildings, and specifically on building level projects. We're a large there's a lot of us trying to support all of the various buildings out there. We want to continue to make sure, as I presented earlier tonight, that we're maintaining our capital assets in a very efficient and is reevaluate our district revenue spending. You're going to hear a theme: projects or capital projects. How do we make sure we're using the dollars that we have because of the classroom, but at the end of the day, we're not neglecting some area, specifically our capital projects, and we're going to continue to look at funding sources to ensure that we can do that. The next strategy is to ensure that district-wide resources are adequate, and we're not talking about equal here. We're talking about how we best support our students. So, in relationship to making sure that our resources are used equitably, and through Mr. Hyde's perspective is we want to spend some time on our ELL newcomers and making sure that the programs and services that we're providing to those students are the best way to deliver those services. We want to make sure that our to student need. We've been doing that, but we're going to continue getting down to a granular level to make sure that we look at all components of that, and that's really going to be our larger focus. And one of the things, as we alluded to earlier, as part of our enrollment projection, a couple of our enrollment projections, And we do know that we're starting to have some areas of the seams and develop a plan to address those enrollment changes. When we look at maximizing all revenues, because certainly we want to make sure that if opportunities to bring more revenue to support the programs when we do spend less than our surrounding school districts, we're going to look at that as part of the web launch. Again, we talked about that we've got overlap going on here. We're going to be looking at if there's an opportunity for web advertising, and certainly we'll bring that through the appropriate board that aligns with. And I know Mr. Emerson's currently meeting with our just to talk about if there's an opportunity to increase our impact fees and continue that opportunity for the school district. My strategy for myself is deploying information technology that supports all academic and district needs, and really certainly is used at a district level as well too. Word was added to our strategy and one-to-one launch that we've done at the middle school and elementary level, and that's certainly been very successful, and it's going to be really wonderful to watch to see how that develops content. And then one of the other ones that I think is really exciting for us in our night school, summer school, and online offering through technology. And I think that's a real good opportunity. We have a good, strong hold on that to begin with, but is there an opportunity to continue and expand and meet the needs of our students? And then we will continue to update a comprehensive technology plan. We will bring that forth, but this has the touch point to our website, which was reviewed with you earlier tonight. We will bring forward how we continue to support that financially. And one thing that we've already launched, continue to expand, is an implementation of a district-wide single sign-on. And as was referenced in the earlier video, these are just a small sampling of the various items that we're working on and we'll continue to update you on.
Our last goal area is focused on developing the whole child. And for our strategy 4.1, which is focused on facilitating and aligning effective systems to support the whole child, we will build more depth in our multi-tiered system of support. In particular, with Cheryl Fredrickson, we're looking at developing a data monitoring and reporting system for emotional needs so that our buildings are receiving that data and that our central office is also how we can support schools in that area. We have implemented new math programming in the last 3 years, materials, and this year we're implementing K-8, the Wonders curriculum and materials. So it's very important that we start evaluating the fidelity of the implementation and the effectiveness of those programs, both the actual core instructional materials and the Amy McCrindle for our English language arts and Jackie Dajinski for math, building look-for sheets for our principals and our teachers of what we should be seeing with those instructional areas. It's very important we're supporting our teachers through that process because this is with our new ELA materials in the one-to-one environment. It's very exciting, but they do need to have professional development as needed to continue that. In the area of to support the whole child, really we're trying to focus on, so why do we do things different in every building? And that can be a real frustration for parents who are in different schools. So one of our goal areas, action items is to ensure the consistency and equity in pre-K to 12. That's really grouped at our elementary, our middle school, and our secondary, our high school level. But this goes down from things as simple as school supply lists different from every building, why are building handbooks different, all that we offer 6 to 12. Last year, all of you had the opportunity to see our graduation program that Anthony McGinn and his department pulled together. It looked wonderful. Our middle school recognition nights in that area. So superintendents are focusing on what are some of those consistent things that we should see across our buildings by level, and how can we work collaboratively with our building leaders do have a more consistent approach. We think this is something our families will greatly appreciate about those often. Strategy 4.2, behavior, respect towards other and ensuring safe environments throughout the district. So with the support of Gary Chester, we are looking at the safety program and looking at educating parent groups on our district have in place. We're also trying to look at a more comprehensive student. Cheryl Fredrickson and Shelley Nacke actually spoke about this earlier this evening. I think the first action item listed, exploring the expansion of professional development focused on creating a environment, is very important, because without supporting our teachers in good strategies and management, how they can communicate with families so that families and classroom teachers can work together. Really important, how do we differentiate instruction? Oftentimes, especially students, off-task behaviors and discipline behaviors actually result because rigorous enough, or they scaffolding for that instruction. So I think it's very important that we give our teachers those tools and engaged in classroom instruction and less likely to engage in off-task behavior, become disciplined. And then, as you heard about in more detail tonight, we're very excited about reinstituting peer jury. Strategy 4.3 is focused on facilitating and aligning effective wraparound services for students based on needs. And this is an area under this strategy, we're really focusing on how we are engaging students in rigorous programming opportunities at pre-K and elementary level. We're really looking to develop elementary acceleration programs. Currently, we really don't have an acceleration program or a way to differentiate instruction for some of our elementary students who are working with Kristen Corvo, our Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum Instruction. 4.32, exploring innovative program options for rigorous academic opportunities at the level. We've done more work there. We're looking to develop and implement additional pathways for our college and career programs for 2017 and 2018. Currently, we're looking at pre-law allied health. And we're also investigating our we're a fire safety program, but are looking more. It's going to require a little bit more time to develop that one. About that, we're also in the process of creating 7 new courses to support our existing pathways. We'll be entering the next year in that pathway. So until those programs are fully built, existing pathways along with this is aligning our middle school programs to high school pathways. We've talked about this over the last 6 months. We're in the process of looking at our current exploratory curriculum one-to-one. We know that some of our students are going to be entering into middle school with a higher set of technology skills than they ever have before. We currently offer courses during the exploratory rotation. We are looking to repurpose one of those, the more basic skills one, into a project-based learning course. We're engaged in hands-on project-based learning with multiple units at each grade, future pathways programs. And the goal is for kids to actually experience the learning and then be able to reflect on, if I enjoyed this, maybe I'll be interested like this. We don't believe that a sit and get of here's all the pathways that we offer to an 11-year-old is going to engage them. Experiences that they had when they were, for example, marketing that in a unit, and then think about a pathway that might have a career that it ties to that. We think that will be more engaging for middle school students. So that's on track, we hope, for the fall of 17-18. And then obviously opportunities for our CT expansion. And I would just like to add that we've also have that listed. We're very excited for our ECC Accelerate students who are currently engaging with ECC. That it's been an excellent start to the year. We are looking for expanding our opportunities for enrichment. Summer STEM programs have been very successful. Of course, when you have a successful program, people are coming back and saying, what are you going to do more? What are you going to do different? So continuing to look at that. at expanding high school course offerings to include a broad variety of electives. We're looking at additional immunities, looking at additional math and or science opportunities, how we continue about taking, instead of just the 3 required years of math, 4, just instead of the 2 required years of science, 3, and so on. And ensuring that all students are exposed and implemented the ALOT program to meet the needs of academically at-risk students. Currently, that's at Carpentersville Middle School and Dundee Crown. She has created, with her team, a very strong vision and support not only for ALOT, but also how are we going to look at our alternative education differently to meet the needs of more students. And then, Mr. Stouffer, you're getting a double look tonight, so we're very excited about the vision comprehensive fine arts program under. Those are just a few of the highlights. We might be here all night under goal 1 and 4 if we list our new action items.
So if nothing else, I think what you saw this evening, because this is, you all great job presenting tonight. Again, these are just a few of the things we're working on. Also sends a very strong message to community. Part of the strategic plan also reaffirms everyone that we have working here is working very hard on multiple things, and our approach to how we support core instruction, our teachers, resources, fiscal responsibilities, developing the whole child. We are true. It takes time to get there, and we top performing district in the nation. We would continue to strive to improve, and that's a continuous improvement model that we all embrace. Kudos to the team. They've been very aggressive in refining these things for this year. It's taken us a little bit more time to get than many of us would have liked, but at least we're now pacing things appropriately and to ensure their success. And I think that that's also important. It's great to launch. We could launch this year, but we didn't. And so listening to the team, listening to staff, I listen very closely to the peers and others through lead or directly to say, hang on, we need a little bit more time with this before we move on to the next thing, and that's okay too. But nothing that we're doing here are we doing just because it looks good or it sounds good. I think, quite honestly, what we is an opportunity to be truly successful for a long, long time to benefit our students and staff. So, again, thank you to the team for presenting this evening. Board members, I don't know if you have any further questions.
No, it's great.
Board members, moving into the last topic this evening. This has become another favorite of mine as we go into board meetings. This is the time for the District 300 Good News Update. Already about peer jury and others, but national merit finalists. And these students will join us in the very near future. I would like to congratulate 4 of Jacobs High School students scholarship program. Congratulations, Jacob Sabella, Jacob Moser, Samantha Smith, and Ryan McMahon. The upcoming board meeting to receive some formal recognition. I'd also like to recognize one of our students, and again, this is interesting, developing the whole child. We just talked about that. And actually, I need to recognize Bobby Dellert. He is from Hampshire High School. He won a major national championship, and he basically won the Eastern BMX Championship in Kentucky. He won the Eastern Division of Jersey and will be featured in next month's Pole Magazine, which is a publication of BMX for topics and for our students. Also, Riley Elmore, who going anywhere in this district without having heard that name or seeing his face posted someplace. And I tell you, he's received, this was supposed to be very quietly and delicately managed because it's very early on. They're much deeper in the season than obviously is, so he is held under very strict confidential requirements or confidentiality requirements. We did, as soon as we were authorized to, we did make district announcement. The school continues to make announcements, but Riley Elmore appeared this year on this season's The Voice. He sang a wonderful rendition of The Way You Look Tonight that drew the interest from both Mr. Adam Levine and Blake Shelton as his coach. The entire D300 community stands behind him, and we wish him the best of luck. And every week, every time that show is on, you flooded with reminders. Don't forget he's on. It's written about this young man as well. We're very proud of him and his accomplishments. Received some also recognition in the local. 60 students from Dundee Crown, Hampshire, and Jacobs High School learned about alpaca thanks to a grant funded by our D300 Foundation. This has been something they've brought between two-dimensional and three-dimensional art, oils or pastels. An artist selects fibers of different colors. During their talk is how to harvest their wool and the process of making through alpaca felting. And again, this was covered by one of our also local. This is one that I did save. I did provide the board with some update as far as I think tonight and in multiple presentations. I think really good sense of how hard our media department is working under the leadership of Mr. McGinn. But the Illinois School Public Relations Association recently held its annual state communications contest, and more than 150 total entries were submitted, and entries were judged against the criteria of overall excellence. Only those receiving the top scores in a variety of areas received any awards or recognition. I'm pleased to report the District 300 Communications team won 5 awards and including excellence for the 5-year Strategic Plan Communications Campaign, the 2014-2015 Annual Report, the Pathways Programs Marketing Campaigns, their Spotlight Series. Excellent. So kudos to Mr. McGinn and his team. Also, we have a summary of this from me. So beginning a new project with this morning meeting recap videos. These highlights from each board meeting. It takes out a lot of the dialogue, but the presentations are mainly the summary. And Mr. Fiorentino sent me a question about this, so I'll clarify. This place of the regular broadcast of our meeting, nor does it take the place of the YouTube for the subsequent day. But it is a quick 3 to 5 minute video that we can send out to staff and stakeholders in the hopes that A, we keep them engaged, and we may stimulate further interest that they may delve deeper into the process as well. So again, community members would like to view the recap videos, because we do email them out as 100.org/board recap. Finally, last but not least, October is Bullying Prevention Awareness Month. So this is something we started 3 years ago. This October, District 300 will recognize National Month on Thursday, and we will send staff and community members a message inviting them to raise bullying prevention awareness by wearing a blue shirt on Monday, October 3rd. We've already provided information to all of our building leaders with a summary of the month's activities, and also with some marketing strategies and some information from Mr. McGinn's office to highlight the activities on their campus, both through social media, the website, and through October 3rd is Blue Shirt Day, World Day of Bullying Prevention. And I encourage students, staff, and our community members to wear a blue shirt to support bullying prevention awareness. Their blue shirts are encouraged to email photographs showcasing their support to at d300.org for us to share on their social media channels. That summarizes or completes the superintendent's report for this evening.
Any questions or comments, board members? Okay.
It absolutely will. So, Mr. McGinn and board members, you have, the general public does, because while we do publish it, the strategic plan is actually close to 40 pages long. There are 460 there, and we do that. We publish all of those materials online. So yes, all of it presented online, just as we did last year as well.
Participation. Okay, no public participation. Thank you. Legislative update. Kathleen, did we
brief.
hear any?
Yeah. Basically, as far as legislation, there's not much happening, obviously. There is, however, I wanted to talk just briefly about the Illinois ISRFC. And that was started at the beginning of last summer by Governor Rauner. As to ones in the past, is he actually, every leader from each of the leaders was able to invite missions. So in the way I see it, it's the first bipartisan committee that I've seen to where all sides are, now whether they're working together well or not, we don't know, but they've given a deadline of February 1st or February 17, 2017 at some point, that they are full reform package put together. Met 4 times so far, and I don't know where they are. I think they're just kind of gathering information at this point, whether they come up with something by February. The big difference between this as opposed to other what's been talked about in the past is the governor and a lot of really about money. This is partially funded, but it's also a complete reform. So it's looking at things like teacher how we evaluate teachers, teacher evaluation, learning standards, graduate throughout the state, and actually taking everything into account. As a few have said on there, Jason Barrickman, the one who keeps popping up on this, is it's not, money doesn't fix every problem. We all know that. So, so this is going to be something that we can watch closely and see what comes of that. And I have a feeling that once they come up with something, that could move pretty quickly through if it has everybody's attention, everybody's input on that. So interestingly enough, we do have 3 of our local legislators in that committee. Bob Pritchard, of course, who's been Dan McConchie, who's new. He takes Senator Duffy's place. So he's on that committee, as is Karen McConaughey. So that's pretty much, but, you know, it's interesting. And I'll keep you posted.
Yes.
I attended the Kishwaukee Division meeting last week, and now Mrs. Burley is our member at large for the Kishwaukee Division, so can, you know, advocate for us.
Moving on. Item 12, consent item. Motion to approve.
So moved.
And Mr. Fiorentino.
Lopez?
Aye.
Ms. Burley? Aye. Miller?
Aye.
Fiorentino? Aye. Motion passes 4-0.
Item number 13, consent item. Mr. Fiorentino.
Lopez?
Aye.
Burley? Aye. Miller?
Aye.
And Fiorentino? Aye. Motion passes 4-0.
Okay, item 14.1, approval of the Village of Lake in the Hills sewer easement intergovernment.
Second.
Any discussion? Great.
Lopez?
Aye.
Miller?
Aye.
And Fiorentino? Aye. Motion passes 4-0.
Okay, item 14.2, approval of the 2016-17 budget authorization and resolutions. And do I need to read anything more than that?
Second.
Any discussion? Great. Mr. Fiorentino?
Burley? Aye. Lopez?
Aye.
Aye.
Fiorentino? Motion passes 4-0.
Anything from board finance, or did we cover everything there was? Mrs. Harkin. Mr. Fiorentino, anything on that one? Finance?
Next meeting is next week, October 3rd at 4:30.
And Construction and Facility Oversight Committee, any updates there? Nope. Okay. Any other board discussion items?
Quick question.
Yeah.
The board that's here is going to the III in November. That's our organizational meeting. I didn't know if-
I'm not attending this year.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, motion to adjourn? Mr. Fiorentino.
Furley?
Aye.
Lopez?
Aye.
Miller?
Aye.
Fiorentino, aye.
Okay, thank you for
There is
filling
no
in.
second closed session. I didn't see it. I didn't hear.
I think she mentioned it earlier.
Budget.